I figured today I would get back onto that big JVC SVHS camera that I kind of quickly looked at before. We're going to get into this one this time, see if we can make it work. We know that the transport doesn't work and the camera itself also has problems. I may have just got ripped off on Facebook. Let's check it out. I figured today I would just take a quick look at this beast and take a look at, see if I can get the camera section. I'm not too worried about the recorder right now. The recorder doesn't work as well, but the camera section is pretty noisy. I thought maybe I might look at the camera section today and see whether I could make any headways on that. And then I realized that I was out for lunch today. I was wearing my dress watch, so I got to go take this off because I don't want to get this one damaged. But I figured, you know what? I'll show you guys this because you've probably never seen one of these before. In fact, I guarantee you that you've never seen one of these before because there's only 3 of them in existence in the world, and I have one of them. So this is the Controlli Automatic, and that's the name of the jeweler that made it. It's a friend of mine, and actually he has one of them, and I have one, and there's another one that was sold. So there's only 3 of this type of watch in the world. The mechanism is made in Switzerland by ETA, which is a company that made a lot of mechanisms for Tag Heuer. Even some of the earlier Rolex used the ETA or ETA mechanism. This one here is an automatic winder. It's self-winding, 21 joules, and I say I don't put this on very often. It's just worn for special occasions, and I just happened to be out today. I was out for lunch and I wore it, but other than that, it sits in its box. This is about 40 odd years old, and it's what they call a skeleton. So you can see the mechanism in the back. There's the self-winding rotor that when you move, this rotor spins, and it's probably fairly wound now, so it's probably not going to spin much, but you'll see it moves. It does spin. If I turn the crown a bit, it will actually rotate. So you can see the inner workings of a fine Swiss watch, and that is just a work of art. Mainspring down here. If I wind it, I can't wind it manually too. If I wind it manually, oops, you'll see the mainspring will turn. You can see the trademark up here if we can see it. If I can get a shot of it or not. That's it in all its glory. Hand built. Anyway, I'm going to put this away for safekeeping because I certainly don't wear this when I'm working on anything at all. I don't want to get it scratched or anything. It's in, as you can see, absolutely pristine condition. There's not as much as a fingerprint on it. Well, maybe there's a fingerprint, but there certainly are no scratches or anything on it. It is just like it left the factory. So I'm going to go put this away for safekeeping, and then we're going to get into this camera and see if I can get the picture to improve on the camera section. Here's a refresher to how bad this camera looks. You can see on the left side there, when I cover up the lens, there's a huge amount of noise. Now I've got it in high gain mode, obviously, but that's emphasizing that noise, which shouldn't be there. That's going to be capacitors, I'm sure, in the camera section itself. There's also, as I say, problems in the video recorder portion, but we'll deal with that later. Today I'm more interested in seeing whether I can get the actual camera to look a bit better. Now, I've never opened one of these up before. I know there's problems in the filter as well because it won't change filters, so we'll just pull these screws out on the side of the camera and hopefully that'll get me into this thing. I was really hoping that I could operate the camera without the recorder section on, but that adapter that came with it, even though the plug plugs into it, I get no video out. I get output from the YC358 connector, but of course I don't have a YC358 to plug into it. Okay, well, I think we already know where the problem's going to be on this. It's got our favorite surface mounted craps on here. And this is probably where our problem is going to be, is on craps like this. So I guess the first thing first is we'll try just throwing some heat and cold on and see whether I can shock these and get them to give me an indication which ones are causing problems. But it's going to be full of these surface mounted caps, just like the other big pro camera that's sitting in here right now that I've spent way too much time on. But this one's mine, so I won't be spending a lot of time on this. I'll see if I can get it to go quickly here. Just peel our way in and... Ooh, look at this. Wonderful. Well, it's got regular caps in here as well. And it's full of our surface mounted caps. There's to be 4 boards in here. And this one. So I guess the first thing first is to try to get an idea. Try to localize which one the problems are, which board the problems are on. It's going to be a work in progress, I'm sure, over the course of several videos. This is one that I certainly paid more than I should have for this one. I didn't pay a lot for it. I gave the guy about 1/5 of what he was asking for it, but still, it was sold to me as a camera that was working, and it is clearly not working. It's clearly, oh, look at that. This isn't even sealed from light. When light shines into here, this is how bad JVC's optical systems work. Let me show you. I'll put the camera on the monitor. As I move the light in, you can see it on the screen. Like, there's not even proper shielding of the CCD assembly in here. Like Sony would have everything in a light, tight box. That's not the case on this one. As the light shines in, it's washing out the picture. Take a look. Cheap JVC, junk, very cheap. So if I take a flashlight, for example, and just flash it in here. Oh, look at that. That's just shining a flashlight into the camera itself. Like not even towards the lens, just into the side of the camera. Turn on my light and you can see what happens with my light. So that's certainly going to affect my my test results if I'm testing the camera and I'm trying to get my iris on manual setting here so I can close it down. Where's my iris setting on this one? That should be manual. There we go. So I got the lens completely closed now. That's just pointing a flashlight around to the side of the camera. And I say I'm not even pointing it into the CCD assembly. I'm just, well, I'll show you what I'm doing. I'm just shining the light right here on the circuit board, and it's enough is conducting through the board and into the back here that is being picked up by the CCDs, which are obviously nowhere near well enough shielded. Anyway, first things first, I'm going to grab some cold spray and we'll just hit the boards here with some cold spray and see whether those lines disappear or move around and so forth, whether they change their width and so forth, to try to localize which board the problem's on. And then we'll take it from there. I have to pull the boards out to check things, and I have to turn the lights out to do this because the light just shining on the side there washes out the screen completely. Like, I got a white screen now just with the light from the lamp landing on the boards. What a piece of junk. So to do this, I just take a can of cold or a can of duster and turn it upside down, and then it becomes a can of cold spray. And we'll just kind of blast it in here and see whether the picture changes, whether the noise changes. And if this doesn't do it, then heat will be the next one. Oh, maybe in here. I just saw a big shift when I hit these caps up here. Gone all red now. So that's just giving a bit of frost into one of these boards. I'm going to throw some heat on there now and see whether this goes back to normal. Get the heat gun. Alright, so just throw some heat on low and we'll just see what happens. Well, that's taking the red away. See, what I don't know is this could be a power supply problem that's feeding in from the VTR section. That could be the problem because the VTR section is what's feeding the power to this thing. So it could be a problem with the DC to DC converter in the VTR that's giving the camera problems. But I'll just tap those caps again with the cold spray. And you can see certainly there's some issues on this board in the camera, so maybe we'll start by checking that board out. The board in question is this one right there. That lifts out. Now it's gone all green. Oh, that's just because of the light. That's all that is. Looks to be that there's no shielding whatsoever on the prism in here. Jesus, guys. Talk about a cheap design. Like there's no optical shielding in here for this the beam splitter. So right now I've got a bright green picture because the light is shining in on the green CCD. Just disconnect my power. I want to pull this board out. Actually pull a couple of these boards out and just take a look at them if they'll pull out. I don't know whether these ones unplug or how they come out. This is broken. This is what selects the filter for the lens, and it's not working. Like the plastic gear is stripped, I think, in here in the optical block, so I can't change the filter. You want to talk about a cheap crap design? Okay, like Sony, all the boards just unplug. But not on JVC. No, JVC you unplug the entire boards all at once. All three boards come out at the same time because they're all interconnected together. I have a feeling I'm going to be abandoning this project quicker than you can say abandon the project. What a joke. Here we go. The cards come out. Sort of. They do come out. Okay, that's how the cards come out on this. There's one little connector here that plugs in as well. Undo that. Oh, great. Connector just broke. Wonderful. I guess I won't be unplugging that one because the plastic is brittle. Wonderful. This is the boards themselves. As you can see, there's just three boards that just basically fold down, and that's it. These are all 100 microfarad at 6 volt. Looks like all of them, which I don't have any 100 at 6 volt that are going to fit in here. So this would become a real work in progress if I decided to go down the road of changing all these caps out, which I'm not so sure I'm going to even bother with that. I bought this thing more as just a display piece, just because I thought it looked cool. I didn't buy it to use as a camera, and therefore I don't want to spend a lot of money recapping it. If I could get it to kind of work, then I would do that, but as far as recapping it all, We'll just get the ESR meter and see how bad some of these caps are. They may not all be bad, but some of them may be worse than others. But this one here, like the EVW 300, which I used to have, and I got rid of mine rather than recap it 20 years ago. I got rid of it because I knew what was going to happen with it. I knew it was going to require a total recap, and I didn't want to do it. I did that with a CCDB 5000. Recapped one of those when I had it. That one's open. That one's okay. This is a 1 microfarad. I don't know. Maybe I didn't get a good connection. We'll try that again. Yeah, that one appears to be open. Be nice if I could get that plug to undo without it splitting to pieces. I'm just scared that the way that this plug is cracking, that it's not going to let go. It's going to break. Wonderful crap. That one looks to be open too. That one there, 0.4, that one's okay. That one's open. That one looks to be okay. That one's open. That one is open. Geez, everything, all these are going to have to be replaced. Every last one of these caps looks like it's going to have to be replaced. That one's open. That one's open. That one's open. That one's, oh, they're all bad. They're all 1 microfarad to look to be 50 volts. And these are all toast, every one of them. You know, if this was a customer's camera, I'd be telling them, you know, to do all these things, you're going to be looking at well north of $1,000. I quoted, unfortunately, I quoted too low on the EVW 300. I think I quoted the guy $700 to $800 to do it, and he decided to do it. Well, now I'm into it for, I've probably got 20 hours into that one now, and I kind of got it closer, but it's still a long way to go. I still got tons of the caps, about 120 to change, and I've done maybe 20 on it now, or so, somewhere in there. I haven't changed them all because a lot of them are buried very deep inside the camera, and I kind of, it's certainly not worth fixing. This thing's certainly not worth fixing. You know, my best bet on this, these are all open. Every single one of these is open, you see. The meter's not even completely zeroed out, but it's close enough because these are measuring open. So that one's okay. Looks to be 0.4. That one's okay. That one's open. 0.39, that was probably okay. 330 at 6 volts. That one's there. That was okay. That one's okay. Oh, it might be okay there. Or questionable. That one's open. No, that one's okay. That one there looks to be okay. That one's open. That one's open. That one's open. That one's open. You see, they're all, that one there's, that's 58 ohms, that's bad. 90 ohms, that one's bad. Some of them are measuring okay, but there's certainly a lot that are bad. .27, that's definitely bad for a 47 microfarad cap. This 100 is 0.3. That one's probably okay to leave. That one's definitely open. That one's open. I mean, there's so many that are shot on here, and there's a couple boards up here that I can't even get out because I got to pull the CCD assembly out. These are actually attached to the CCD assembly. It looks to be. I don't think they unplug. They look like they're connected. They got cables and stuff going to them. I think these ones are connected right down to the CCD board. There's screws that go down from the top, so this section will have to be taken apart to get at them. And that's the one where I sprayed cold spray in and everything went red. So at this point I'm starting to think more and more that this camera is one that I'm just going to say forget it. Maybe flog it back off on someone else as the parts camera. Unlike the mini disc player that everyone told me when I put in that I may have got burned on Facebook. Unlike the mini disc player, where the seller said to me that the mini disc was untested, he couldn't tell me whether the mini disc worked or not. I suspected it wouldn't work, and I was right. But he never came clean and said the mini disc does definitely not work. This guy said that the camera worked. And the exact wording of this was, camera powers up and worked the last time I used it. That's kind of the catch-all phrase, right? Because, well, everything works the last time you use it until it doesn't work. If you want to play ignorant and say, well, I haven't powered it up in 25 years, you know, when he says this worked the last time he worked it, you would assume that he's tried it recently. But he could have tried it 15 years ago. Might have worked fine 15 years ago. But it definitely doesn't work today. And had the guy been up front, he was asking $500 for this thing. That's what he was asking for this camera. And I said it's not worth $500. And that was open, that one's open. I think I paid $100 for this one. you know, after negotiating, it sat there for a while, and then he came back and he says, I'll let you have it for, I think he came back and said, let me have it for 125. And at that point I should have said 50. And I didn't even get back to him. Then he come back to me and says, I'll take 100 for it. And his words were, yeah, it works. It works. He says, you know, last time I used it, it worked. And, well, we know it doesn't work. It sort of has a picture, but it's washed out. It's going to be, all these caps need to be changed on it. And now I just have to decide whether I'm going to go to the headache of replacing them all. Some of these small ones I might have, but it's pretty dense to put in leaded caps. There's not a lot of room in here to put in leaded caps. And replacing all these SMEs is not only a pain, but they're expensive. Like, they're a lot more money to buy these than it is to buy a conventional cap. So I don't know if I want to spend the money on this. I think these ones are probably okay, because on this board, if we look on here, these ones are through hole. So these ones are probably okay. I don't know about the VTR portion. Maybe we'll pop the side off this and just take a look inside the VTR, because it won't thread the tape. Well, it'll thread the tape, but the drum won't run. So there's some problems in there as well as on this camera section. For sure, these are going to have to be replaced. The surface mounted on this other board here probably also are bad, as are these ones, because all these surface mounted are from the same era. They would have all been made around the same time, and they're all going to be going bad. So let's throw these boards back in. I'm going to pull the side off the VTR section. We'll take a look around in there, see whether I can even get the VTR to operate, because right now it won't thread properly. It just kind of threads, but the drum doesn't turn. And we'll evaluate that and see how far I want to go on this one. But at this point, I'm thinking this one may not be repaired. I might, but I'm not leaning towards spending a lot of money on something that is basically just going to be a prop put on display. I just think they kind of look neat. But the VTR has 4 screws that hold the side cover on. We'll pop these ones out, and then I'll try loading a tape and see what it does and put it through its paces. The neat thing about this SVHS deck is it's got both linear stereo and hi-fi stereo, but it's a single speed, SP only, of course. And I do have the adapter so that this can be used as a standalone piece of equipment without the camera plugged in. Okay, what do we got in here? We've got looks to be more conventional caps on this one. I don't see surface mounted caps on this one, at least not from where I'm sitting now. They all look to be more conventional. Man, it's packed with boards just like the other one. It's got boards that are all plugged in and sandwiched together. Audio 1. Can't even get the side cover off with these short leads. Little daughter boards here. You can see that on camera or not, but there's little daughter boards that are just soldered on. These are hardwired to the main board, like that. Another JVC nightmare it looks to be. I hate JVC equipment, I really do. I'll pull the side cover off this side and the tape door off so we can kind of observe what it does and see if I can get anything to happen on the VTR side. For those taking notes, this one is a BRS 410. That's the model of the VTR because it's separate from the camera. That has to come off. Okay, here's the video deck side of things. Power this thing up and see what we can make it do. So say when I tried it before, it would thread the tape, but the drum wouldn't spin, and nothing, no tape would move. Well, it looks like maybe water maybe you've gotten in here. Look down here. Is that indication that water or liquid may have gotten into it, which is always a possibility. Alright, the power is turned on. Hit the eject button. That part opens, we know that part opens, but when I put the tape in is when everything went sideways when I tried this. It actually had a tape in it when I got it, so I had a hell of a time getting the tape out that was in there when I first got it. So let's just see what happens when I close it. That's what happens. It does nothing. What if I press play? Watch it work this time. Oh, come on, give me a break. Okay, well there's where it gets to. The drum's at least spinning, and that stops. I wonder if maybe we've got a worn belt. Well, let's see whether this will eject, and that shuts off. Now it's gone off. And if I try to eject, it will eject. Oh, now it's going to try to load again. You see, now the drum's not turning on. Now the motor's not turning on for the taking the tape up either, the real motor, because it just unthreaded and threaded, but it didn't wind the tape back. As you can see, it's doing what it was doing before. It's just trying to thread and unthread, but the drum motor is not coming on. But it did that first time. And then it just shuts down, and I gotta power cycle it off and back on, and then it'll do the same thing. It'll just unlace the tape and then lace it again, but the drum motor doesn't come on. The fun part's going to be getting the tape out. There we go. So I got the tape out. I'm curious as to whether it's a slipping belt or maybe a mode switch. I don't even know where to look on this one. I guess I got to pull the boards out to check that out. I'm looking for the boards that fold down on here. I just like to get in and take a look at the belt if I can get to that. It's buried deep in the chassis here. There's a lot of circuit boards in this thing. And some of these screws just don't want to come out without a fight. Like this one, it just wants to strip. What do we have in here? Oh, we have a good old, there's a loading belt, of course, right up top here. This one's using an optical encoder, which is what tells the system what the position the mechanism is in. I'm wondering if this belt is slipping, and I'm curious as to whether I can actually make this thing operate with this cover off, because I have to reconnect plugs in order for the switch to turn on the power. I don't think the switch will turn on the power with this one unplugged. Maybe it will. Will it or will it not? Is it on? Or is it not on? Okay. So that worked without this plug-in. Just the, I guess what this was for is for the lights on the side. This plug is for the lights that are on the side of it. There's more wires for the audio level controls and so forth that are right down there. Again, these plug into other boards. They certainly did not make this one easy to work on, that's for sure. There's a belt there. There's a loading belt over there. I just want to see what happens when I put in that tape. Is that belt in fact slipping? Be nice if that's all it was for the VCR portion, is a slipping belt. Try play. Belt is not slipping because the loading motor is stopped. And it shuts down. And now it's just going to go through this load and unload over and over again cycle. But the loading motor is definitely not slipping. Or the belt, I should say. And there's lots of torque because when I stop the pulley from turning, the motor stops. That's interesting. This time it let the tape out. Oh, now it's going into fast forward. Well, isn't that interesting? How about rewind? Now it's going to rewind. Do I dare try play? Is this thing going to start working? No. It laced up the tape, but then it shut off. It says stop, and it's pointing right to here. Now if I try changing modes, it says it's in stop mode. Let's just try fast forward and see what happens. So now it goes to the fast forward rewind position, so that part's working. Stop. Let's try the play position and see what it does. It rotates all the way around and stops shy of play. The play position is right there. Backspace play. So this should turn all the way down to here. And it's stopping. I wonder if it's just jammed. I wonder if this needs some grease on the mechanism. I think there's a worm gear on this one up here. I wonder if that's what the problem is. I wonder if that worm gear is just dry and it's just jamming. The belt's certainly not slipping. So we'll just try putting some grease on this unit. See, there's a gear. Looking for something to point with. There's a worm gear up here that turns. This is the loading belt, which is not slipping. And then there's a worm gear here. I can probably take this loading motor out. Looks like there's 3 screws. Let's just pull this loading motor assembly out. Power it up again. You'll see it on thread. It'll go to the stop position. and then it's going to try to reload. I'll just stop it in the stop position right there. Okay, I'm just going to pull these 3 screws out, and we'll lift this loading motor assembly out with its belt, so I can just check that, because it appears that it's not completing the loading cycle. Maybe that's why we're having trouble with the VTR section. If I get the VTR section working, then it'll give me more incentive to dive into the camera section. If not today, certainly down the road, if I can get the VTR section to work. I mean, hell, if I can get the VTR section to work, I could use it as a standalone machine, because I do have the input-output bracket for it, so it can be used without the camera. Not that it's really much good though, because it's using the proprietary YC358, which is not a standard YC connector. Now I can make adapter cables for sure. It's just getting the proprietary plugs. I don't know if they're available anymore. They were kind of short-lived. JVC used them on some of their professional equipment for a while, and then they kind of abandoned it. Okay, this is the gear I was talking about. It's got grease on it, that's for sure. It does have grease on it, but I'm wondering if it's got enough. Get the tape out of here. Okay. Kick the tape out. I'm just going to try putting the mechanism through its paces. See if it sticks. See if there's any mechanical reason why this thing's not going into the full loading cycle. So if I turn it, this threads the guides, and they're all moving nice and freely. Oh, okay, maybe this is why it's sticking at this point. No, it's not. That's just engaging the pinch roller. That seems to work okay. If I power the unit up with the loading motor, I was obviously going to try to operate the loading motor. I'll just stall this and see whether that pulley slips. And you can see the pulley is not slipping, so belt is not the problem. We'll try putting some lubricant on the worm gear here and see whether that will help move this thing along. It could be also the pinch roller sticking. It seems to stick when the pinch roller tries to engage, so maybe the pinch arm itself is sticking. We'll just run it through manually again, and I'll observe the pinch roller on the other side as to whether it's maybe the shaft is sticking, right? Maybe the metal post is gummed up, because it gets quite stiff when it gets to the point of operating the pinch roller. It gets quite stiff turning this gear by hand. The pinch roller itself, though, is not, like, the post isn't sticking, that's for sure. This is moving nice and freely. But when it gets to the point of actually having to engage it, it's in place now, but there's a fair bit of resistance now to turn this and get it into it's just the spring that we're pushing up against, because the pinch arm itself is not at all stuck. So that might be normal. It might just be the spring that I'm pushing up against, and that's what's causing the resistance. I'll try some Molykote grease on the actual worm gear. See whether it's just sticking due to lack of lubrication, which is entirely possible, because the only place that really contacts the gear is right here, and these middle teeth are really the only place that makes contact with the gear itself. So what tends to happen is the grease tends to get pushed to the outside where it does no good. So we'll just put some fresh grease on these inner teeth, reassemble it, and see whether it will complete the loading cycle. Okay, I struggled with the motor to get it back in place. Let's just see whether it has made any difference. So I'll hit the eject button and see if it'll eject. I think this is the eject button. It's in the loaded position. Oh, now it's loading without a tape in it. It's threading without a tape. It's like it doesn't know what mode it's in. Interesting. It says it's in stop mode, but the guides are fully loaded. If I cycle it off and cycle it on, it goes through the unloading mode, and then it just loads it back up again. Weird. Might have had something to do with my light shining on here affecting the optical sensor. I turned out my light and it actually unloaded. So let's just see whether it'll go into the loading mode now. Okay, it's in stop mode. Push play, what happens? Will it actually finish the loading cycle this time, or no, we're still going to do the same thing. Still not completing the loading cycle. Okay, now it's in play mode and the tape is spinning. I wonder if there's any video on this tape. Nothing on the tape. But I got it to go into play mode. Lots more than I got before. Stop. Play. Just help it. It's like it's sticking. Now it's into play mode. You can see the motor spinning. You can see the snow on the screen. So this is sticking while it's spinning. The motor doesn't have enough power. And the belt's not slipping, but the mechanism itself is sticking. It could be something gummed up, I guess, that's frozen when it's engaging the pinch roller. As I noted when I was turning it by hand, that it was quite stiff getting into the capstan mode when the pressure roller would come on. Stop. Let's see if it'll eject the tape this time. I bet it will. I think the reason it was shutting down is it was getting stuck, and just like that, it got stuck again. So I've lubricated the mechanism. I put some grease down on the guides here, a little bit of grease there on the guides, and I've lubricated the mechanism a little bit more. And I've got the tape end sensors covered so that I can walk this thing through its paces without a tape in it. I can observe what happens and see whether it's going to go and complete the loading cycle now. Now if it does, I'm going to have to spin this reel here, otherwise it will go into shutdown mode. It'll detect the tape is broken, but as you can see, the capstan is engaged, the drum is spinning, the capstan's spinning, and the take-up spool is turning on here now. So it appears to be that it is actually completing the loading cycle. Press stop, and everything seems to unload like it's supposed to. Fast forward. Fast forward. Oops, of course it didn't go into fast forward because there's nothing moving here. The tape is broken, I think. I didn't spin the fast forward. There we go. Rewind. I'm gonna spin this, otherwise it'll stop. Stop. Play. And it seems to be going into play mode with no tape in it. So we'll try it again with the tape. I'll pull these pieces of tape off the end sensors. And I'll see whether I can make it work with the tape in it. If I can get the tape machine to work, at least I'm halfway there. Okay, will it thread? Will it load? Or will it still jam? Hey, it's going into play now. Excellent, excellent. So I just threw some more, Molly coat onto the guides here. Maybe the guides were just sticking just enough as they were loading that it didn't have quite enough power to complete the loading cycle. And of course now it's going to eat the tape because it didn't retract the tape back in. You know what? I think the brakes aren't working. The brakes aren't working properly. If we watch the tape reels, it should go click and the brakes should snap on, but they're not. What else is wrong with this thing? Oh, still not kicking. See, what should happen is this little spring should kick over. It should be like this, and that should drop the brake back. So I got to pull the loading motor again, just to check that the little catch that rides on the back of the cam or the worm gear is actually in place. The problem I had was getting this motor back in. It was a real bitch to get it back in because of the way that this thing is designed. I don't have any room with this panel in the way here. Just the way these wires are all laid out, there's just no room to work on anything. It's just a joke. Looks like this little foot was stuck. This is what rides up against the loading gear, and what it does is when the motor reverses, this is what flips the brakes on. But this is the brake release here. This gets pushed over to put the brakes on. And it's all done by reversing the direction of the loading motor. Here's a little ratchet right there that does it. Right? When it's running one way, you'll hear it going tick 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 tick, and then when it reverses, it catches it and flips it. And that's the little cog right here. It flips this one right here. I'm about ready to give up on this piece of crap. Will it play? Will it go into play mode? Well, it's going into play mode. That's more than it was doing before. I'm going to see if it'll actually play a tape. But you see, it's rewinding the tape back, so it's not chewing up the tape, so to speak. I'll put a tape in that's got something recorded on it. I want to see if I get a picture off this thing on playback, and we'll take it from there. Let's see if it works. Let's see if I can make it work. If the tape player part works, then it's a part with dealing with the camera section, and whether I'm going to proceed on the camera section, because we know it's got a whole bunch of leaking capacitors at this point. It's working, it just doesn't have a really good picture. It's got quite a noisy picture, and that's just due to all those caps that are bad. But I don't know if I want to spend the money and the time getting it working to perfection, considering that it's basically just going to be sitting on a shelf on display. It's not going to be put into use because, well, it's a VHS camera. What can you say, right? It's not the quality that we get out of the small HD cameras and 4K cameras these days. It's an old, sure, it was an old broadcast quality camera back in the day, but that's also going back about 35 years. So things have changed a lot since then. What was considered good quality back then is considered crap quality today. So this is more just a challenge to see whether I can make this thing actually do something other than nothing. And I've got it to the point now where at least the mechanism appears to be working a little better than when I started. So I will load a tape, press play, and see if I get a picture. Camera's on now. Is it going to show a picture, or is it just going to show snow? There should be a picture on this tape, but at this point I just see snow. I'll just try the good old fingernail on the heads. Like I don't hear any sound or anything. Analog sound. Okay, well, we got a picture now.
The air passes into the chamber containing a powerful double ultraviolet germicidal bulb made by Philips.
But hi-fi sound, no hi-fi.
Are a series of specially designed batteries.
This is hi-fi.
Maximum purifying effectiveness. Clean, germ-free air flows out of the XIF and back into the room. Airborne viruses.
So this is the analog
come in contact with its ultraviolet
soundtrack that's playing. The hi-fi appears to have a problem.
Like XIF. You know it's working when you see the blue light.
If I switch to hi-fi, we're going to get all that noise.
Miracle Made is the first company in the world to combine UV and air filtration technology for household use. This simple-to-use, effective product is like no other in the industry. The XIF is unique. And because it's
I wonder, my AM transmitter is running. It might be causing interference. Let me just turn that off.
Simply move it around for safe and effective air purification. Breathe easier. Live healthier with the new Blue Light Ultraviolet Extra Intelligent Filter.
Okay, so now I've turned off my AM transmitter and that noise appears to have gone away. See, AM radio stations are on the same frequency that VHS Hi-Fi used. So obviously with a 400 milliwatt transmitter in here, it's going to get into the rewind this. It's going to get into the audio circuit. So we'll try that again and see whether I get any. I don't know if there's any hi-fi sound on this tape. There might not be hi-fi sound. I'll put on the Panasonic Palm Quarter commercial because I'm pretty sure that one was in hi-fi. Just gonna rewind it here. All right, okay. It's now in playback mode. Are we going to get sound in hi-fi? That's the question. Put my level on here too, or my tracking meter to tracking. Keep the tracking. So there's no sound. Hi-fi sound is non-existent.
Encoder. Notice Notice how the image from his camera is more stable, as if he weren't moving at all.
What else is new?
Stable. You're not. And the tape's playing your VCR.
So this has a hi-fi audio problem as well as a camera problem. Just try. Make sure it's not just a clogged head. It indicates it's a hi-fi tape, but there's no sound. That's a regular sound.
The competition. The Panasonic camcorder. Notice how the image from his camera is more stable, as if he weren't moving at all.
So what else is new?
Stable even when you're not. And the tape's playing your VCR.
Alright, I think it's pretty safe to say right now that
Sonic camcorder. Notice
that's linear audio.
as if he weren't moving at all.
I think it's safe to say now that I got burned on Facebook on this one. Had the guy said that it doesn't work, then I would have offered him maybe $50 or $20 for it. But this one was advertised as working, which was kind of deception. So now I got to decide whether I'm going to just keep this thing as a display piece, more than likely, or put it back up on Facebook and advertise it as parts only. I mean, the VCR portion is sort of working. It's working in linear stereo, but it's certainly not working in hi-fi stereo. I don't think the fact that my counter is unplugged is going to affect that. This is just for the counter, right? Everything else is connected, so I've left the counter one unplugged just so I've got enough slack. But the audio hi-fi board is over here. This is the process board. There's nothing that's unplugged on this. So we got lots of problems with this machine, that's for sure. Lots of problems. Got another problem as well. If I try to put it into record, it doesn't do anything. I've hit play. As soon as I hit the record button, it goes back into stop. So obviously it's not detecting the switch. So I've got the counter plugged in. It's telling me everything that's set up here. But still, when I try to put it into record, it just stops. I hit down play and record together. Well, I hit play, but as soon as I hit record, it stops. So it's not detecting the tape switch. It's not being detected because the switch is present. Like the tab is not broken. You see that the tab is here. So it's not detecting the tab switch. I'll just try to activate the switch a few times here. Maybe it's just dirty. Be interesting to see if it'll record. I'm obviously not going to do a super VHS tape. I just got a regular tape on hand, but it'd be interesting to see if it'll actually record anything. There won't be any sound because there's no microphone plugged into it. They don't have one for it. But I'm just curious as to whether this thing will actually record anything from the bad camera that it's got. Looks like there's some screws missing on the back. Somebody was probably into this thing and told the guy it wasn't worth fixing, and he sold it and said that it was working. Like so many of these people on Facebook do. Well, not just Facebook. Craigslist, eBay, they all do this thing, same thing. And no, it's still not detecting that switch, so there's more problems than that. I think I'm going to throw this thing together. Before I do, I'll tell you a story I was reading on the news today. So I guess this is becoming a problem for this woman in Coquitlam, and people in the States won't read this on Facebook or other news organizations because, of course, they've been blocked from carrying Canadian news because of the fact that they won't pay the writers to carry the news. But there's been a bit of a problem happening here lately, and that is with Amazon sellers. So what Amazon sellers have been doing is they don't want their stuff back when people buy things like that they can't resell, you know, like swimsuits and shoes and stuff that they can't resell. The sellers don't want them back. The sellers don't want to pay to have them back. So what they have been doing lately, and this woman in Coquitlam has had it happen now, she says she's scared to look at her front door because every time she opens up the door, there's boxes of returned stuff. And there was a picture of her with all these boxes of shoes. Like, her living room is full of them. Of all these shipments of stuff that have been coming back that the Amazon third-party seller has been using her address and her name as a return for items that are being flogged and returned because they don't want them back. And of course, that's someone might think that that's a good thing. You're getting all this free stuff. The problem is UPS and FedEx and so forth has been sticking her with the broker charges and customs fees for these things that are being shipped to her. So every time a package arrives in the mail, she gets another little surprise, a bill in the mail a few weeks later. I've talked about this before with people sending me stuff by FedEx, and then I get a bill for it after the fact. And I have a hell of a time collecting from someone, especially if the item they sent me is something that's not repairable. And I tell them, well, there's a $75 in broker fees you got to pay, and they tell me where to go and how to get there, and that's happened more than once. But anyway, I was reading this on the news today while I was having lunch, and I thought it was kind of funny because it's not funny to the person that's getting it, but this is what some of these Amazon sellers are doing so that they don't have to take their junk back and have to pay for the fees to return them. Anyway, I'm just going to throw this thing together, and this is now going to go into the don't look at this for a long time unless you're really, really bored and really are desperate for something to do. In other words, it's going to get shelved, and it's just going to be a display piece until I figure out what to do with it, which may very well be just to turn around and sell the thing for parts or whatever. As I say, I never really picked this up with the intent of ever using it. I picked it up as a project, but as we see from this, the shape of this unit, it's in pretty bad shape. So to get this thing running is going to require an extensive amount of work, and I don't know that I want to put that much time and effort into something that has what this has in value, which is nothing. So maybe it'll just become a display piece to sit on a shelf or something. Sit it next to my Betacam and my GY-DV 500 professional DV camera, which is another piece that's collecting dust that I'll never use. I didn't take this side off the camera. Maybe we'll just remove that side just so you guys can see what's in here before I throw the rest of it together. I'm sure there's more crap in there that's bad. uses 2 screws that are smaller than the others. These are number 1 Phillips, and the others are all number 2. We'll just pop these other screws out just to get a look inside this side of the camera. If the mic holder has to come off, probably does. Maybe not, but that side doesn't seem to want to pop off. Oh, it does have to come off to hold the side on. Alright, now will this side pop off? Oh, that's even more. Yeah, you see? You see? Yeah, even more surface mounted caps on this side that are gonna have to be swapped out. So yeah, there's just way too much wrong with this camera to even consider rebuilding it. The cost to just for the parts, you know, is making it questionable, but the time required to do it, it's just not worth it for what the camera is going to do. Sit around. So we'll throw this one together, and at least I've got a nice, cool-looking conversation piece. I didn't bother even putting that microphone holder on because it's broken, so I might just throw that back into the case. Leave it at that. Put the side cover on. And the only good thing out of this whole deal was the power supply. I got a power supply with a standard Canon 12-volt output, which can power my other cameras. It can power my other JVC camera. It can power my Betacam. So that part of the deal, I guess, was okay. To get a power adapter and a 12-volt cord that had like a cigarette plug on one end and a long extension cord. This is an extension here. So if I wanted to do something with my Betacam, I could plug it into this extension cable and plug it into a battery pack and use that. So I guess that part is okay. I got a good power adapter out of it. It's about all I got that's any good out of this, because this is universal. This will power my GYDV500 and my Betacam. So if I want to power them up and use them on power, or even use them with a battery pack, I can do that with this cable. So I guess that part of the deal was okay, but the camera itself, no, this one here is this one's beyond economical repair, as they say, and I'm going to leave it at that. We'll catch you in the next one. Bye for now.